I think that you should never be too happy. And I think where this can get misconstrued is that I mean you should be sad or that you should not be happy, which is not what I'm saying at all. I think that you should never be too happy, which is critical. Why I believe this is I think happiness makes you vulnerable. And I'm not saying that you should never be happy, because if you're never happy, then I don't really think there's a point to living personally. And I do think happiness in general does have a contrary entity, being sadness, obviously. And if you can't be sad, then you can't be happy. If you can't be happy, you can't be sad. That's just nature. But if you allow yourself to be too happy, that can make yourself very susceptible to very low lows. And what I mean by this is if someone gives you a compliment and says, I got new pants recently. So if someone came up to me and said, Hey man, I really like your pants. And I go, Oh my God, this is the craziest thing ever. I'm going to lose my mind over this. And this is the best day of my life. It automatically makes my day. Well, the problem with that, if someone comes up to me and says, I don't know why someone would do this, but if they did, because people are weird, and someone goes, Hey man, I think your pants look terrible. And then on the flip side of that, in response to how happy I was when I got a compliment, that might actually ruin my day, as dumb and as trivial as that sounds. Someone saying, I don't like your pants, or something maybe more severe, less severe, whatever, depends on the person, depends on the day, that could actually really ruin a person's day. If you let yourself get too happy about the compliment, then you're going to be super vulnerable when it comes to people dissing you, which people will. That is just it's weird, but that's just how the world works sometimes. So a more broad way of putting this: if your highs are too high, your lows are too low. And what I always say to my family, and I don't think they get what they're saying, they kind of just go like, whatever. But what I always say is manage your highs. Because I think if a person can manage their highs, you can manage anything. And what I mean by that is when someone does give you a compliment, I don't think you should lose your mind about it and you should be like, this made my day, this is the craziest thing ever. Depending on the context, especially something like the example prior of someone complimenting like your shirt or your pants or a tattoo or something. What I think is you should take that, because it takes a lot of courage to give someone a compliment, and it takes a lot of courage, honestly, to get one too. And you just say, thank you, I appreciate that. And you don't need to blow up over it and be like, this is the best thing ever. You also don't need to do that weird thing that sometimes we do where we go, oh, no, no, these pants are terrible. Or like, no, I got them at a thrift store. They're like my brother. Like, no, man, it's okay. Like, we get really weird about it and frantic sometimes, which is kind of strange. And we don't need to do either of those. We just need to live in a balance of, thank you, I appreciate that. And let that be what it is. And I think it's simple because then when someone kind of smacks you on the flip side of that, it's like, I don't like your pants. I think your tattoo looks stupid. I'm against those for whatever reason or whatever the case might be. And someone says that, you go, oh, okay, fair enough, I understand. And you just move on with your day. There's not really much else to it. And I think the significance of this is you're managing your high. If I can say when someone goes, I like your pants, and I can say, thank you, I'm not going to freak out over this, but I'm also not going to just flip this off to the side. I'm going to say, thank you. I'm going to take a moment with that. I'm going to appreciate it, and I'm going to let it be what it's going to be. And that's all it is. And I think if you cannot let yourself feel too good, it is so much easier to not let yourself feel too bad. And I think the nature of this kind of idea and how I came up with this is is courageous and as difficult as it can be to get yourself out of a funk, to get yourself out of a depressive phase, or maybe you're just actually super depressed or whatever it might be. To get yourself out of that, it's super difficult, don't get me wrong, but it's almost an incredibly organic progression in life, because feeling bad sucks. We don't like feeling bad. We want to feel good, which is how something like addiction comes about. We feel bad and we find a stimulant in our life that makes us feel good, and it's very difficult for us to take that out of our life. Again, managing your highs. If you can't manage your highs, you're actually a lot more susceptible to addiction, in my opinion. I think you just are. I think that's the nature of how that works. So I think what makes this really interesting is, yes, it is difficult when you're not feeling good in life to feel better, and largely it's just because you feel lost and you don't know what steps to take next. But I think it's also very natural for a person to want to feel better, right? I think when it comes to being depressed, like having any generic struggles in life, whatever it might be, it's very natural to be like, this sucks. I don't want to feel this way. What can I do to choose for my way out of this and progress so I am happier? I am feeling better on a day to day level. Whereas when you're feeling good, it's really difficult to look at this and say, yes, this is great. Yes, I can take this in. Yes, I can take a moment with this. But if I let this become everything and I let this absolutely make my day, make my week, make my life, then when something goes bad, which it will, when that happens, you are just letting it take you right out from under. Like you stand no chance in that moment now. And my point with this is it's very easy to want to feel good when you are feeling bad, but it is very difficult to not let yourself feel too good. It's very, very difficult. I think it's 10 times harder. And this is why we have problems with being on our iPhone all day, indulging with food, drugs, alcohol, something like adult content, anything like this. I think we struggle with it so much because we have right at our fingertips a cheap, easy, very accessible way to feel good. And we can really indulge in that and we can lose what it is to be a human, because being a human is living with contrast. Being a human is, I know what happiness is because I know what sadness is. I know what it feels like to be full because I know what it feels like to be hungry. I sleep because I'm tired. Contrast is what makes up everything in life, and it's important to have that, but within range. Sleeping 4 hours a night and you're being extremely tired, that's not contrast, that's an extreme. It's an extreme contrast. It's still contrast, but it's far too extreme. And that's where those lifestyle habits can become really strenuous on us and really kind of knock us down some pegs. Whereas when there's a lot of cars going by here, but when we are doing well with ourselves and we're not letting ourselves get too high, we're not doing too well, we're not sleeping in 12 hours a day, we're sleeping 8 hours a day. It's consistent, it's steady, it's simple. We're managing our highs. We're not letting ourselves sleep too much or eat too much or drink too much or whatever the case might be. I think this is actually the most critical thing when it comes to happiness and the most critical thing when it comes to getting out of funks, but not only getting out of a funk, but staying out of a funk. Because we see a lot of people when they try to lose weight or something, they crash diet, but then they indulge and they're flip flopping on these really extreme kind of teeter totter in essence. And it can be chronically unhealthy. And this is why we see so many people when they try to make change in their life, they struggle so much because they go from one side so much to the other side. But if you can go, hey, I've lost 10 pounds, that's cool, that's great. And your plan was to lose 20, do the next right thing today, do the next right thing tomorrow, and the next week, and the next month, and the next year, and so on and so forth. Because that's all that really matters. You take those baby steps, you put a brick in a wall. And some days you won't put any bricks on that wall, and some days you'll put two. And it's critical that we don't freak out when we don't do any, and it's critical that we don't freak out when we do two or three. We aim for that one every day, and sometimes we might fall short of our mark in life, and sometimes we might exceed our expectations. But if we can manage our highs, then it is so much easier to work through and get out of the lows as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I think that's kind of the gist of this video today. Never be too happy. Don't be sad, be happy. But never be too happy. Because when you're too happy, I think that is the scariest point to possibly be at in your life. And I think a lot of people break this down until you get complacent, you get lazy. But I think getting indulgent is actually my biggest fear with that. Because once you get indulgent in something, that's when you lose the satisfaction in that, and that's when everything really can start falling apart in your life. So the gist of this, never be too happy. Do not be sad. Be happy. Be sad. Do not be too happy, because if you are too happy, you will become too sad, I think, inevitably. So that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any deferring comments below. And yeah, that's it for this one. See you later.